Hi, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, I'm going to compare Azure and AWS global infrastructure. In other words, I'm going to compare Azure and AWS regions, availability zones, and content distribution network locations, i.e. edge locations in AWS language. So firstly, let me take you through Azure regions. For those of you who don't know what is region is nothing but a geographical area where Azure or AWS infrastructure is located. So as you can see here, Azure has a lot of presence around the world. They have lots of data centers. They have a lot of presence in US and Canada, and similarly they have a lot of presence in Europe, and they have quite a bit of presence in India, China, Japan, Southeast Asia, Australia and Brazil. And Microsoft coming up with new regions also in France, South Africa and Australia. One thing you might have noticed that they don't have any presence in Middle East. At the same time, as of now, they don't have any plans to introduce new regions in Middle East. When it comes to AWS, similar to Azure, they have a lot of presence in US and Canada. They have a lot of presence in Europe, and they have quite a bit of presence in India, China, Japan, Southeast Asia, Australia and Brazil. They are coming up with new regions in Europe, Middle East and China. One thing you might have noticed here, they don't have any presence in Africa and they don't have any plans to introduce as of now. So if you are a Middle Eastern user or South African user, probably the presence of AWS and Azure might make a difference in terms of choosing AWS or Azure. But my gut feeling is in the next 5 to 10 years, AWS and Azure will be present everywhere. So it doesn't really make any difference. And the next thing is availability zones. When it comes to AWS, in each region, there are multiple availability zones. An availability zone is an isolated location within the region, but they are all connected using AWS backbone. One key thing that you need to remember is availability zones is more a concept belongs to AWS. Microsoft doesn't have concept of availability zones. However, very recently they started introducing availability zones. They will slowly adopt these availability zones in Azure also for different regions. But as of now, availability zones is not a concept that exists in Azure. And final thing we need to compare is edge locations. What is an edge location? You can imagine edge location as a collection of physical servers where the high bandwidth content will be cached. So for example, somebody uploaded a video in Europe, and if that video is getting accessed by end users in Australia, they might experience a lot of latency. To avoid that, the content of that video will get cached on the edge location within Australia, so that the users in Australia will essentially access the content from the Australian edge location, which will significantly reduce the latency. So that's the reason you should use edge locations. In terms of edge locations availability, when it comes to AWS, they have a lot of edge locations. So for example, in North, you can see there are a lot of edge locations. Similarly, South America, Europe, Asia Pacific, you can see a lot of edge locations that are available. And when it comes to Azure, they do have a lot of edge locations available, but they don't belong to Microsoft. They are provided by a third-party providers. So if you go to this link, which I have provided in the resource section of this lecture, there are two third-party providers that provides the CD and POP locations, and they have a lot of presence around the world. But you need to compare between Azure edge locations and AWS edge locations when you are going through the requirements. So for example, let's say you have lots of users in South America accessing your high bandwidth content. So my advice is compare the edge locations between Azure and Amazon and check whether you have a lot of edge locations in South America or not. So let's compare the edge locations in South America. As you can see, there are a lot of edge locations from Azure perspective. But when you go to Amazon AWS, you can see here, so you go up here, South America, they have less number of edge locations. So you might need to think about this when you are selecting AWS or Azure. Similarly, there might be another location where AWS might have more edge locations and the performance of the edge location might be high when compared to Azure. So if you are delivering high bandwidth content, edge location is something you should think of. when you are comparing both Azure and AWS. And one more last thing I would like to tell in terms of comparison. Just because Azure or AWS has a presence in a particular region, it doesn't mean all the services are available in that particular region. So you need to understand what products are available by region. Both AWS and Azure provide that information to you. So if you go to this link, you can see what products are available by region. If a region is newly introduced by both AWS and Azure, they will have less services available. You need to be mindful of that when you are trying to use AWS or Azure. Make sure what services are available within the particular region, and also make sure what is the roadmap from Microsoft and AWS perspective when the additional products that are available will get introduced into that particular region. So just to show you, as you can see here, all the products offered by Azure by region. For example, let's say, let me go to storage. As you can see, the data lake store is not available on quite a few regions. So it is only available in North Europe, but it is not available in West Europe, UK West and UK South. Something like this, you need to make sure you see that before going for Azure or AWS. You can see the similar stuff in AWS site also. You can see all the different services that are offered by region. Make sure you compare both of them when you are making decisions. So that's it for this lecture. In this lecture, we have compared Azure and AWS global infrastructure in terms of regions, CDN locations, availability zones, and products by region. In the next lecture, we are going to log into Azure portal and AWS portal, and I'm going to take you through some of the key aspects of these portals, and we will start logging into these portals in the further lectures in order to create different services. See you in the next lecture.